dock builders, have new seawalls put. Certainly many of us would buy boats. Also, we pay high taxes to live on the water and are not benefiting from the pleasure. I'd be more than willing to find out more about. I know the folks at Turkey Creek are very, very, very vocal in my office. This is the first I've heard of the EGRIT program.
They sat with me.
It was brought up in December when we were all.
John Monjo at Turkey Creek. It's very vocal, I can tell you.
They
He
talked
called
about the
me.
EGRIT policy. In fact, Senator Altman was very, very.
Yes, we brought it to the delegation meeting.
Yes, and then they came and sat with me in my office too.
Yeah, we went to,
6 hours. Well, I would encourage, since I represent part of the Ocala too, more of the scheduled meeting. I would love to hear about the needs of the Ocala River. I mean, trust me, I've listened to Turkey Creek. I'd like to hear about another one.
Yeah.
More than willing.
well, we've gotten a lot of support from other officials, and you're the last on the list that we need to get with to get some.
I like it. Well, I'm glad you put this
support.
I'm here
You
this
got it.
week.
Got it.
More than willing to set up a meeting. Listen.
Terry says, what cuts can we expect in the criminal justice system? That's a real tough question, Terry. I'm going to say some. The reason I say some is because you saw. Can you go to, where's JB? JB, go to that slide again with our 95.5 budget. We have to make up $5 billion in our budget. And 95% of it is made up between education, healthcare, and criminal justice. They're going to see cuts. What kind of cuts? Man, it's going to be tough. I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer. I will tell you this. Maybe this will help answer that question. Each of us that sit on appropriations chair, John is on higher ed appropriations, and I'm on transportation economic development appropriations. We were mandated to go through our section of the budget, so don't confuse it with the entire budget, but the entire budget is being done, but each by different sections, okay? And transportation economic development, I had to go line by line, and I had to rate how much I would fund that line for. So 100% means I fund it exactly the same way it was last year. 90% means I give it a 10% haircut, or 100% means get rid of the program altogether. On my particular worksheet, I defunded every single project that was somebody's pet project, whether that was somebody's a grant program for a museum or it doesn't really matter. Anything that is not in the 3 tiers of government. If it doesn't fall into roads and bridges and police and criminal justice and our health care, then I wasn't interested in funding it. But most of the departments under my part of the budget received at least a 10% haircut. And the ones that had the most employees got the biggest haircut because one place that I've learned that government wastes is with bodies, with employees. They tend never to ever think they need to downsize people. And I think now is the time that Florida needs to look at all aspects. So every line item is going to be cut. Hopefully the big 3 will be the least impacted as a result of this below the top cutting versus just the big hatchet up the top.
I'm on higher education, and there are some specific line items for private institutions, and you wonder why is the state sending money to private institutions but not increasing the wages of our public school teachers. I've got a problem with that. I zeroed $80-some million of frag money out. We have money going to traditionally African-American private institutions. It's wonderful, but I don't think public money should be going to private institutions, so I zeroed that out. There's money going to Moffitt Cancer Society. I had 3 women that had different kinds of cancer in my office, and it's terrible to say that, I zeroed the $8 million that the state of Florida had sent to the Moffitt Cancer Society, but I think the fundamental belief in government is we should not, when you're in these tight, tough circumstances, I think the money should go to the areas of the highest need. That should be the public sector. So, and you may have some problems with Governor Scott's proposed budget, but I will tell you right now, he did a darn good job going through with these special interests, putting a line through them and zeroing them out. So I don't agree with many of the things in this budget, but as far as it comes to special interests, he set the bar pretty high and wrote a line through some pretty, what I would consider egregious special interests. So we've got a good start, and I know in the higher ed budget that accounted to about $120 million that were going directly to private institutions.
And in the TED approach, we were currently at $180 million in cut.
Okay, I think we got this one. FRS members with 15 or more years take plans based on previous promises by state. Should the promise be made, these people be capped? I think, and we touched a little bit on that. People that are about ready to retire, it's wrong to do a complete paradigm shift. That being said, I think there needs to be some tweaks to the FRS system.
Just so you don't get your feelings hurt, I'm going to ask John to do the same thing. If when I scan it, if it's one we've already covered, I'm going to send it to a second pile because I don't want you to get ignored. But if we've already talked about it, we may set your question aside. Have not, we touched on this, but I'm a nurse who takes care of many smokers with cancer, heart disease, and fairness, question mark. As a taxpayer, I'm paying my taxes for their medical needs and Social Security. Why not increase the cost of cigarettes? Laura, it's a great question, and I actually got that a lot. I actually got beat up about that when I voted down the tax increase. To me, it wasn't about smokers and their rights or whether or not they caused increased medical expenses. To me, it was about the young man or woman that works at the Circle K. And we have almost 14% unemployment rate, and as a result of the tax increase on cigarettes, Georgia has picked up a 4,000% increase in the sale of cigarettes along the border. All we did was shift the buying habits of smokers. We did not curtail cigarette smoking, and that was the stated goal of raising the taxes. I don't think that in a deep recession, I actually don't believe ever, but in a deep recession, it is no time to raise any tax, including one that might sound good like cigarette tax. Yes, sir.
Representative Workman, did you just say effectively, based upon the question, that we allow people to buy cheap cigarettes in Georgia, and then we take care of them on the Florida Medicaid program?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Pretty
Okay,
much.
why do we have a Medicaid program in Florida? Constitutionally, where is it justified? Cite the clause.
I can't cite you.
So how do you need to vote on Medicaid next time you go to Tallahassee? You need to line it out.
All right, we'll take that back with me. Thanks.
Okay. Please explain.
Thank you. Sorry.
Please explain your view on smoking bans in public places where children play, parks, in open areas, or in structured sport activities such as Little League. From Shauna, is there a Shauna here? Help me here. You people are.
I'm an advocate with the Brevard Youth Tobacco Initiative, and one of the things that we're working towards is to get support for public bans in smoking. Not to negate the rights of smokers unless they're smoking in places where children are in play.
Like a beach?
Like a park where it's kids only, or like at a soccer game, where children from the ages of 0 to 18 can play. They did it in New York City in Central Park, so I know it can be done in Florida.
I will be more than I'll be more than willing to look. And I'll tell you what. I work at a college, and we had put smoking bans by the entrances, which I thought was absolutely ludicrous. Why? Listen, I don't smoke. I don't like the smell of smoke. But walking in the door, I thought was wrong. Of all the problems that we have in higher education, the fact that we called the committee to decide where you could and could not smoke. I understand you shouldn't be able to smoke in the building, but now we're designating where on certain sides. I mean, at some point, government gets a little big. That being said, I understand the concern having a young daughter, how that potentially could cause problems with young ones, and I'd be more than willing to sit down with you and find out. Though the argument New York did it isn't necessarily a good one. California thought it was a
Just
great
so you
idea.
know, the city of Palm Bay passed a resolution banning smoking in public places where children play, and kids from the West Melbourne, and kids from the Melbourne public football leagues jumped over to go play there. They don't want to play in Melbourne anymore if they have to be in the stand, if they're in the stands and the parents.
Look, I'll be honest, ma'am. I appreciate your fight, and keep it up. It'll fall on deaf ears with me. Cigarettes are still legal in this country and in this state,
I'm not
and
saying people
I'm not
shouldn't
going to
smoke them,
infringe
I'm just
upon
saying
somebody's. Let
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna infringe somebody's personal liberties and their freedoms to smoke outside.
You know, the cigarette thing is a real red herring.
I know, but
Same people, alcohol kills more people than cigarettes. These
Stop.
Same people that do the cigarette.
I know,
thing.
we're not gonna debate among each other, remember that? We're not gonna do that.
So, you know, this
She was
is
being very respectful.
let's just.
I got it. We decided, yes, ma'am. Some things we'll just always disagree on. They're lovely to me, even though they know that we just never, and you seem the same way.
That's the same
I
argument
will
people
never
make to legalize
vote to
pot.
ban cigarettes outside, ever, ever, ever. I don't care the situation. I just think that, and I'm not a smoker, but for God's sakes, at this point, you already have to leave your building, which is probably good. I mean, I watched that show on TV where they smoke inside. I just think, ugh, gross. But at the end of the day, you can't go outside either. Where do you got to go? You got to dig a hole. Will you
Smoking
continue
bunker.
to lean through the Florida statutes to identify and repeal those statutes that encroach on our constitutional rights and stop job growth? Penny, amen, great question. I actually set up a committee of folks in a group called the Republican Liberty Caucus. About 12 of them got together and helped me find all these repealers I briefly touched. I ended up finding, I think, 12 of them. One of them we found was that in order to take a bottle of wine home with you after dinner, you have to have consumed a bread, a salad, and a main course. Then you can take your wine with you. These are just old, archaic laws. And you know what? That takes away just a little sliver of your liberty and your freedom. And I just find it remarkable. So Penny, I will continue for as long as I'm in office to continue to repeal laws.
The one thing I'm concerned about too is a lot of the business regulations.
Yes.
That goes on.
Mine was Penny says, what about business regulations? We overregulate the bejesus out of our businesses in Florida. But I do want to digress slightly on that, because I learned something when I got to Tallahassee that made me a bit sick to my stomach. Businesses complain about the overregulation, and I concur with them. I'm a business owner myself, and as a mortgage company, I am ridiculously overregulated. In fact, the federal government has now told me how much I can make in my job. Probably the first socialized industry in the country. Hopefully that'll be overturned. But one of the things I learned, Penny, that really bothers me is how many industries come to us to be regulated. I thought this must be a public safety issue. They're coming here to be safe and be regulated. And at the end of the day, I learned sadly that it was because they want to create themselves a niche or a competitive advantage via the government. So last year, after I saw this happen with our home inspectors, I said, you know what? I will never be on their team again. Because what they've done is they've come to Tallahassee to carve themselves out a piece of statute to give themselves an advantage over somebody else. A quick example is a barber. Barbers used to be the surgeon in town, right? Now what do? They're not allowed to dye your hair. They cut your hair. That's the limit of a barber's ability, right? Or legally. I went to repeal the language that requires barbers to be licensed. They went nuts! And they said to me, hey, if you repeal the statute that makes us be licensed, anyone can cut hair out of their house. I'm like, oh, it sucks to be in America and cut hair out of your house. So it's amazing to me how many people want to be regulated in order to carve themselves a niche. John?
Okay, driver's ed here. Driver's ed was removed from schools in Florida by the past administration. This is a very serious issue for young people who are trying to get a driver's license and learn the art of driving. The projected loss of life, accidents from lack of proper training can be minimalized. What is your stand on this issue, and what do you propose to do? Right off the bat, it's my understanding that we did not cut. That is a school board decision, and the school board made the decision that it was in their best interest not to provide drivers education. Are you familiar with the state mandating that there was no driver's ed in the